This is Mo,
And this is Aryeh,
and you're listening to
the Relatable Podcast. Let's do it.
Damn Feisty.
So let's hop into it. Me and Zack have known each other for a long time, even though we just met a few weeks ago.
We're like brothers, man.
Exactly.
Woo.
And in Camp Simcha, which is, 5 months ago at least, I've heard about Zack's Shabbos meals for months already. Took a long time to get in here. As we heard, you told us you're backed up for how long?
I'm backed up now for about 8 weeks.
That's insane.
As we record, this is January 5th, 4th,
Yeah,
something like
5th
that.
maybe.
Yeah, we're backed
Wow.
up till middle of March. I think close to perm already.
That's
So
unbelievable.
for all those looking, we'll try to get you in. Speak to the secretary.
Absolutely,
Yeah, we're gonna
absolutely.
send like a Google Doc with a waiting list in the bio, you know?
Only if they like and subscribe, you know?
yeah.
And I guess I just want to dive straight into that. The hospitality when I came here, even just now, we just finished an episode previous to this. There's meat, there's pastrami, kitchen's open. You don't even eat meat. You're a vegetarian, correct?
I'm
What?
a complete vegan. Yeah,
Yo, first
completely
of all,
vegan.
First of all, I was vegetarian for 5 years. I told Arya like 2 days ago. He didn't believe me.
I'm
Well,
vegan.
I think it's for
vegan
different
now
reasons.
for 3 years.
Yeah, I think it was definitely for different reasons. Could we dive into that for like 1 minute? I know Arya's probably not so
Absolutely, I'm
interested.
vegan because I suffer from chronic gout,
Okay.
and meat and alcohol is some of the worst things for gout.
What is that? That's a disease or?
Yeah, it's this best way to describe it to the simplest humans and people that don't know what gout is. It's essentially kidney stones in my joints.
Ooh, that sounds rough.
Yeah, I've suffered. I've had kidney stones. I've had them all, and I could tell you that gout is the most painful thing out there,
To exist.
And-
literally. And I suffer
That's
from it chronically. I would get
Wow.
gout attacks for 3 months at a time
Ooh.
in my knee. Basic human functions you can't do if your knee is messed up. And so I went vegan now.
Who suggested you go vegan?
No one suggested it. It became a point that I was actually afraid of food. Like completely afraid. That was the type of foods and the diet you're on
It's very
is
connected.
very, very connected to gout.
So what was that like? Meaning before you came to Israel, now you have a whole different lifestyle. You're for the boys, you're giving. I'm sure you always had that personality, but let's just go back to 5 towns, I believe you were.
Yeah, I was in
Living?
Woodmere.
And what was that like?
It was definitely a good chill. I was very involved with the Yeshiva Torah Shimon,
Which is Rabbi Groner, right?
Rabbi Groner's Yeshiva. I used to have the guys over, especially during COVID. A lot of places weren't open, things were closed down. In the beginning of COVID, I agreed to give them the initial 2 weeks that they asked for.
Really?
Didn't do anything. Then they announced for another 2 weeks. I said, to hell with this crap.
I'm
Screw
done.
it, baby.
And I threw a fat party that night.
Nice. So high.
So you hosted a party that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had like
After you got
20
the
guys.
go.
I had like 20 guys over, grilled up some food, opened wine. A
Doing it
real
right.
nice party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real nice party. It was a time when I was eating and drinking.
That's what I'm saying.
Nice.
A real nice party.
Was it like an instant regret with your condition, or it was kind of like you just felt it over time?
No, I was suffering from the condition then. I didn't really care. I would just deal with the pain and just drink away the pain, I guess.
Oh, wow. Kind of an escape.
Yeah. And over time, it developed into a chronic issue. So it got to a real dark time in my life. A real dark time
Could
when
imagine.
3 months with a gout attack, basic human functions not being able to done, it was like I was done living almost.
Wow.
I had text my wife. I told her, I was like, that's it. I'm done.
Really?
I was in New York. I had a flight home that day.
Oh my
And
God.
I couldn't walk. And so I texted my wife. I said, I'm sorry. I can't live like this anymore. And I told her I'm going to muster the strength to go get a knife.
No.
I was ready to give in on life.
Whoa.
Oh my
Mamash. Mamash ready to give in. And she called my buddy over, my best friend. He came over. He told me, please do me a favor and try weed.
No way.
Ironically, yeah.
Wow.
He said, try weed for the pain. It should help you. So I took an edible that day. Baruch Hashem, I was able to get on the flight.
Wow.
I came home, and I credit weed actually to saving my life.
That's unbelievable.
That's wild.
Oh my gosh.
It literally saved my
That
life.
sounds so dark.
Whoa.
Yeah. And Baruch Hashem, I did it. You know, thank God he recommended it to me. Thank God I was able to do it.
It's wild. Looking at you, I would never, beautiful house in Efrat, so giving and hospitable, and yet that dark period of your time, it's...
I had a real dark period. It was really dark. It was a real sad time at that point. Really,
Wow.
really painful time. And thank God the gout has gotten better. I lost a
Wild.
lot of weight, Baruch Hashem.
How many pounds?
181 pounds.
181
Yes,
pounds.
sir. Let's go.
We have to
With
pull
Zack.
up before and after photos.
Yeah,
I've
keep
seen
popping
them.
in.
411 pounds to
Wow.
230 pounds.
It's
Crazy.
unbelievable.
It was amazing, Baruch Hashem.
Wild stuff.
Really amazing.
And then after that dark period, meaning your friend helped you rehabilitate, and then you still weren't 5 pounds for a few more years?
No. I already had made Aliyah at that point. I left. I made Aliyah July 4th of 2021.
Why was that?
I had to sit down with my wife by the elections, by the January elections, and we were speaking. It was originally by Hillary Clinton
Versus Donald Trump?
versus Donald Trump. And I told her, I said, be prepared if Hillary wins. I'm packing up the house and I'm
Oh,
moving.
baby.
Wow.
I said, I cannot be in America with Hillary Clinton as president. Same thing came around with Joe Biden. I told her, understand, if Joe Biden becomes president,
We out.
we're out. It's
What was
not
her
a place
reaction
for
to that?
Yidden. She was totally on board.
Sick.
Well, you think specifically for Jews that it's more...
I felt that Joe Biden was going to bring more of the liberal mindset to America. And the way that it was moving at that point, it was very much a sign that things were going to go downhill for Yidden. You were seeing a lot more anti-Semitism arise already, just in general. And it was also an aspect I spoke to her and I said it's going to become more prevalent, the LGBTQ,
movement
the movement.
in school systems, even
In
little
school
kids being
systems,
indoctrinated.
I was by a customer and he told me that his kid in public school had a drag queen come into the school to talk to them.
What?
And I was like to my wife, I said, this is the way America is headed. It's
I
no
know.
place for my kids.
Whoa.
Like,
And was that a decision driven by the fact that you weren't like cool with your kids being around that, or was it more personal?
I have no problem with the movement personally. I have a family member that's part of the movement. I just didn't want my kids to live in that like
To be desensitized by that.
exactly to think that it was an okay thing what was going on in America, to think that they, God created us with two genders, male and female. He decides what you're going to be. I don't believe people should change their gender just because whatever their reasoning is. I think God chooses what you're supposed to be, and you got to live in that moment with that gender and everything else. And it was just, it was also, I didn't want my kids anymore growing up thinking about Christmas, thinking about New Year's, and all the non-Jewish holidays. I wanted them growing up appreciating Sukkot, appreciating Pesach,
The Jewish holidays.
the Jewish holidays.
It's huge, especially at this time with Hanukkah.
Hanukkah
Christmas
was
right
just
there,
here. My kids didn't even realize it was Christmas.
I love that.
They were living here. They were just so thankful that it was
8 nights of
Hanukkah.
heaven, baby.
It was like amazing.
It's fire.
It's an amazing, amazing feeling. If you're ever here in Israel, you could see like
You walk through the streets and candles everywhere, just
candles
lighting up.
everywhere. It's literally the darkness is lit up. It's amazing.
Literally.
It's
Noam's having
truly
a
an
blast in the
amazing,
back.
amazing thought. It brings so much simcha, and just to see that as opposed to in America, if you drive around, or most places in the world, you drive around, it's the Christmas lights that are brightening things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's mad cool also because it definitely is easier for oneself. I could talk about myself for a second to fall into a state of complacency. Yeah, I'm used to it. There's Christmas lights everywhere. Hanukkah, I'm not so cognizant of the fact. Yeah, my own house obviously has the menorah and the Jewish aspects. But you walk in the street, Target, Walmart, you kind of get used to it. But I think what you're describing is all of a sudden you have kids and something bigger than yourself. And that gets a person thinking a little more like, but is this really what I want for my family? You know? So I think that's a very interesting point.
That's what it was.
Nice.
I didn't want my kids to be enamored by the Christmas lights, the songs and everything else. I wanted them to be enamored by the Chanukiyot, the dreidels
I
everywhere,
love it.
the happiness that comes with Hanukkah, not the holiday spirit in America,
Yeah.
where it's a happiness that comes over there. And
Like maybe we could take some of that for our own holiday. Like
exactly.
no, like I want it to
here,
be fully.
here you're just building strictly off of your holidays.
Love it.
Exactly.
It's an amazing, amazing feeling.
And do you have those moments fast forwarding currently to where it's a certain holiday and you're like, yeah, this is exactly why I'm here. We're just playing with your son Noach and he's playing with this Hanukkah robot that he got for
Oh,
present. Yeah. That's a beautiful example of exactly why you moved.
Exactly.
You know?
It's gives me so much I'm trying to think of the right word here. Hana, and it gives me so
Pleasure and benefit.
much pleasure
Yeah.
and benefit, and it's just like, wow, my kids actually appreciate Hanukkah. It's like when Sukkot comes around, with Rosh Hashanah, with Yom Kippur, it's like they sit there and they're like, wow, this is the days of judgment. These are the days of our new year, not the lunar new year. It's the Jewish New Year, and
Our exclusive.
it's our
holidays
exclusive, our thing.
that we want to embrace. I love it.
And they look forward. They're like, wow, Rosh Hashanah is coming up. It's like an amazing feeling to hear. When I was in school, Rosh Hashanah would come up. We're like, yay, we get a couple days off from
Nice.
school. But
Right.
like,
That
what's
was all it
Rosh
was.
Hashanah
Right,
really?
yeah.
Like, we got to go to shul, and you're in shul
Oh,
for hours
yeah.
in synagogue. And like, so over here, it was just like, yeah, we have to go to synagogue. But it's like, whoa, we go there. It's our day. It's the Jewish people's day. Everybody's celebrating it.
There's that communal aspect as well of everybody doing the same thing, same
exactly.
page.
To dive a little bit. Sorry for cutting you guys
Go
off.
for it.
To dive a little bit deeper into that aspect, you said just now that you weren't as connected before. It's just, yo, let's go. We have school off. Like, we're good. We're going to chill. And then shifting more towards, like, connecting and really appreciating the holidays that we actually have. How did that come about? Was it just like a flip of a switch, okay? Or was it something you worked on?
It was definitely something I worked on. There was a time in my life where, and I credit a lot of it to Reb Mordechai Groner. There was a time in my life where Judaism wasn't at the forefront of my thought process. I did the basic things, Shabbos, kosher, whatever, but like,
More of a checklist?
yeah, kind of. And it was actually, I was in the middle of a big family argument, massive family argument in courts and everything else. And one of my cousins had gotten engaged. And the family didn't know about the fight in the Freud family. So I went on Amazon. It's a crazy story. I went on Amazon. I ordered oak tags.
Which are?
Big pieces of paper, massive poster boards. And I went to my office. I printed out over 1,000 emails that my uncle sent me. Really some of the worst things you could have wrote to a person.
Wow.
Like hate emails, you're saying?
Hate emails, curses, like really some of the worst things. And I was going to put it on these oak tags. I was going to hire a bunch of Mexicans from the Doughty Street Deli.
Nice.
and I was going to go outside the L'chaim and have on it, the Freuds are a bunch of liars.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So my father and my uncle put me in touch with Rabbi Groner. And
Was that the first time you guys connected?
that was the first time we connected. And he called me up and he told me, I'd like to have a sit down with you. I told him, Rabbi,
I'm not interested.
I'm really like, I'll sit with you, but you're not going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah,
Like,
wow.
there's nothing you're going to tell me that's going to change my mind.
I heard the Mexicans already. We're rolling. You know?
So we met at Coffee Bar in Cedarhurst, and he sat there and he told me, I'm going to tell you one thing and it's going to change your life. I said,
It's a
sure,
big-
go
it's a
ahead.
tall ask.
He said, Mishnayos was written. It's 4,200 and something chapters, I think. And he said, you would think if you're writing a book that's so long, it's got to end off with the most powerful thing out there, right?
Yeah.
It would have to.
The ultimate
it,
climax.
Yeah.
it has to climax perfectly. It has to be the biggest thing out there. And he told me that after all these, after 4,200 chapters, what did they end off with? That shalom, peace, is the biggest blessing in the world. And he told me, just imagine if you could bring peace into your family and be peaceful, imagine how much blessing it would bring upon you.
That's all it took.
It just changed the way I looked at life, honestly. I said, okay, Rabbi, you got me.
Wow.
I said, I concede, you got me.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I canceled my plans.
Whoa.
He actually told me, I told him it was going to be very hard for me to be in America at the time when L'chaim was. So he told me he had a trip going to Eretz Yisrael, to come to Israel. And he told me I should join the trip. And at the time, I had just had my second daughter. She was 6 weeks old. I called my wife. I told her we're going to Israel. She's like, but we don't even have a passport yet for her. We don't have
Well,
anything.
expedited, baby.
I'm like, we're going to get it all. Don't worry. We're going to get it done. We're going to Israel. I booked my flight August 1st. We got her passport. We got everything. We came to Israel with Rabbi Groner on his trip. And ever since then, it really changed who I was. It brought out a light in Judaism and really brought me closer again.
That's beautiful.
And brought me back to the Yiddishkeit fold, to the Jewish fold.
Wow.
So sad.
When you did return, those were your words. I'm assuming that it was different, meaning it was probably more meaningful, more connected than even beforehand.
Yeah, I definitely felt a deeper connection to Hashem, to God. There was definitely a deeper connection. There was a greater appreciation for Judaism, a greater appreciation for the peacefulness that Judaism brings.
Right.
And it just really changed everything that I viewed. And
Where do you look, though? Where does someone start? You know, not everybody's blessed to have this life-changing story of a meeting with a rabbi, or how about this, going to Israel. I have multiple friends, and even from my own personal experiences, I had times in my life where I'm just doing things due to the obligations that are in place, whether it's societal expectations or that's just because what I do. How does somebody start that journey of transforming from a religion that you just do without having any deep, real connection to start finding your path that, wow, shalom, peace really makes a difference. Blessings start coming, start hosting people, start finding your nuances in Judaism.
Yeah. So
Where do you start looking?
you got to look at everything that you appreciate in life, and you got to look at what you want and how to connect with the religion. There's a lot of people I've heard, again, I host a lot of people here, they say how they connected very deeply to Shabbos. And they love Shabbos, the whole aspect of disconnecting from the world and just being with God. You got to find your thing that brings you closer. It's not going to be one thing for every person. There isn't that answer, one answer for every person. It's finding your peace in the relationship, finding your part
Nice.
of the relationship that you want to be
For
involved
somebody, it might be learning 10 hours of Gemara a day. For somebody, it might be hosting a couple people for Shabbos.
with. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's considered
Nice.
equal, you know? I
Absolutely.
love that.
Wow. It's so funny because in a relationship itself as well, any relationship, I can't tell you that in order to have a successful marriage, do X, Y, and Z. Because for your relationship, your wife and the way you interact is very different than a more quiet person. So even in the physical relationships that we have, the same truth applies.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's just a very interesting
100%.
point.
You have to have your relationship with God, your relationship with Judaism.
It's unique. It's what makes it special.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very special. And I just want to bring out also that when that's the focus about connecting with others, connects us to God as well, because we're all a conduit of godliness. It changes. I could be doing the same exact thing. If I host a huge party, but it's for me to get clout and popularity and to grow my platforms, I don't know how much closer I'm going to get to God.
Right.
But when the focus shifts, by the way, that could also be there because we're not angels, but when the focus is very much to bring people together and to have a conducive environment, all of a sudden I'm getting more connected with my roots as well.
Yeah, it's really, you never know what a person needs out there. A lot of times a person just needs a place to open up and literally have a shoulder to cry on, somebody to cry to, talk to, and just express their feelings and just hear what they have to say. To have a real love for Klal Yisrael, to have a real love for Jews and for your fellow person, even not a Jew, just any person, to have a real love for them, to show a connection to them, to hear what they have to say. And it'll help them come closer too. They'll see, wow, you really care for them. What's your path? How are you connecting with God? Maybe I could connect the same way. Something like that. It's really just a continuous thing of people just got to be, people need love. That's really
So
what it is.
powerful.
That's what it comes down to.
For someone just walking into your house for the first time for Shabbos, for whatever occasion it was, how do you convey that message of just love? And like, how does someone, let's say I'm coming to your house for the first time and I'm just meeting you, and like I instantly feel super welcome and super like heard and whatever. How did you express that, and how did that come to be?
When somebody comes to my house, I tell them this is your house. I told them there's no rules in this house except for one rule, and that the only rule is to be a normal human being.
Common sense.
Common sense.
Which might be hard for some people, but
It's hard, maybe hard for some people, but you know what? They all look at that and they're like, wow, I could be myself in the house. This is like my home. I could just vibe out however I feel comfortable. And it just brings like a real warmth. I guess there's a warmth in the house for other people to realize, wow, I could be free. I could do what I need to do and express my feelings the way I feel comfortable expressing my feelings. I've had all kinds of walks of life here, all kinds of Jews here. Very religious, not so religious. All kinds of people have walked through this house. And it's almost funny. My wife and I talk about it a lot, how people come and Motzei Shabbos, they're not ready to leave.
right. I
They
had that.
stick around for a few
Yeah, I
hours
remember.
after.
I remember it was like, yo, Ari, we got to get hustling on the podcast. He's like, yo, I'm chilling here. Like, I'm trying to make it out of the bus. I was like, I was getting upset at him, but he's like, just chilling with a cigar and hookah.
I was like, trust me, come check it out. You're not gonna leave. You know?
Yeah, people, I just had people last night, a bunch of girls were here for Shabbos, and they're all like, one of their friends is like, oh, the next bus is in like 12 minutes. And the other girls are like, yeah, but we're just like chilling here.
We're
Like,
just getting started.
why are we running out the door? What's the
Wow.
purpose?
Wow.
Like, this is a place to be right now. Like, why are we going to run out the door to
Love
go
that.
somewhere else?
Sometimes, yeah, you feel like rushed, like you're overstaying your welcome, and it seems like you got that down pat and you're doing it pretty well, that nobody's feeling that way. Which is awesome.
The one thing I've taken to heart is when I was told, somebody told me that Reb Nachman said that you have to find the Nekuda Taiva in every person, the good deed of
means
every
what?
person,
A good point.
the good point, the smallest things. You know, you can have the biggest, the most wicked person out there, but you find that one good point in the person. Wow. We go back to Esav. In Judaism, he's probably the most wicked person ever.
Mm-hmm.
But what was his one good point?
Keep it of aim, honoring his parents.
Honoring his parents. He did it better than most people do today. So it's just when somebody comes in the house, you just find their good point. You just find what they're good at, what they and you try to express it out of them, and you get it out of them, and you help them grow from that point.
It may be difficult. They might not even be able to see you, but it's like, I see you.
Yeah.
You could cover with all the filth and wickedness that you want, but I see
I
straight
see
through it.
I see the good point in you.
Yeah.
It's fire.
It's a hard thing to do, I
Yeah.
will
Super,
say.
super.
You have people have their enemies out there. They're people that they can't stand. It's just finding that one good point in them. That one good thing. Cling to that. Don't cling to their wickedness. Don't cling to all their hatred. Cling to that one good point. Bring out the love from that one good point. It'll change a person's life. It literally could change a person's life. Everybody sees them as a wicked person. You find that one good point. You bring it out from them. Wow, maybe I'm not so wicked. Maybe I am a good person.
Right.
It could change their whole view on life.
I just want to point out, to add on to what you're saying, from Reb Simcha Rabba, who's a trained IFS therapist, we had him on the first episode. He is very into the concept of a U-turn, which is that what you just expressed, it's only coming from a real place if I could do that to myself. So if I see the good point in you, how true is it if I don't value myself? If I think of myself as a person who's broken and I'm a nobody, and I say, wow, Zach, your hospitality is unbelievable. How real is that? So to be able to, exactly what you're describing, find that good point in myself first and say, yeah, I have mistakes, I have shortcomings, I have weaknesses, but I'm a great guy.
Yeah.
You know? And then when I turn to you and really mean and express it, it's coming from a very true and honest place.
Exactly.
You know?
That's an amazing way to put it. Honestly, that's really an amazing way to put it. Everybody has their good point in them, and you should always look at yourself and realize your self-worth. Every person has self-worth. Every person has a place in this world. Every person has a good deed and a good thing that they bring to this world. A person that loves them. A person that needs them, that looks upon them. And a person should always just bring that out and cling to that. Don't cling to your shortcomings.
It's very easy. It's very tempting too. Because
It's
we know that
very
all too
easy.
well.
It's
Yeah.
very, very easy.
It's super easy to focus on. I think naturally we're inclined to focus on negative. It's super, super difficult.
And it's a big thing to change your focus from negativity
You
to
literally have to
positivity.
rewire your brain.
You got to rewire your brain to be thinking the positive, not the negative.
I do want to zoom in onto one point. I was going to ask you, for somebody who doesn't have the financial means to be serving delicious meats, wines, fine cigars, how do I show my love and appreciation to somebody?
A conversation.
Yeah, I think that's
A
what
conversation.
you even mentioned the good things, the physical, because you're
Yeah.
really expressing the atmosphere, the vibe, the comfortability. That's what you could have the greatest. I've been to many meals by penthouses and by very wealthy people, and I felt so stiff, and I'm like, I'm not coming back here
Nice.
because that atmosphere and that love is not there. So really, that's what it comes down to.
Every person needs a person to talk to. I know therapy is a big thing these days. Everybody goes for therapy. You could be a therapist for your best for somebody you don't even know.
Right.
Just let them cry on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Let them tell you their problems. Let them express to you what their shortcomings is, what they need help with. Let them express to you what their troubles are in life.
Without judgment, without
judgment,
solution
without
fixing.
anything. Just
Just
listen
hear
to
them
them.
out.
Yeah,
Just listen. Don't say, "Oh, maybe try this, maybe try
that's
that."
a big one.
No, it's not try this or try that. It's just a solution. Just hear what they have to say.
Yeah,
It's really a big thing.
yeah.
I think you have to get the dog in camera.
Oh, baby. Surprise guest over here.
A surprise guest.
Nice.
I'm trying to pay attention, but I couldn't. My Shih Tzu is not this cute.
No, it's a Maltese.
Oh, Maltese, my bad.
What's going on, Tiger?
Back to what we were saying. Yeah, very, 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 very powerful point. And to amplify what you're saying, I think it's very, very important just to hear someone out and not good advice, not to try to solve or give a solution to anything.
Yeah.
Literally just to be
Listen,
there.
a
And it's
lot
much
of-
easier said than done.
Absolutely. It's very hard. Our natural instinct is to give answers.
I think as men, especially, as the
As
male,
a man,
right?
it's the hardest thing. You always have a solution.
Yeah, we're problem solvers.
We're problem solvers, exactly. But it's to realize that not always does somebody want an answer. Not always does somebody want that solution. It's
Yeah.
really, they just want to express their feelings. You go to therapy. The therapist doesn't always give you an answer.
For sure not.
Never.
He sits there and he hears what you have to say.
Yeah.
And he always asks you, one of the most common lines is in therapy, so how does that make you feel?
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. That's just reflecting inward, right?
It's like, how do you feel about your shortcomings? Why do you feel it's a shortcoming? Why don't you expand on the goodness in your life, of the good point in your life? One of the conversations over the Shabbos table this week was about a person that watches porn. So there were a lot of points that a lot of people were saying, oh, it's a bad thing. It ruins a marriage. It ruins this. It ruins that. And I stopped and I said, yeah, it could ruin a marriage. It could ruin all these things. But why not look at the good point of the marriage also? You have a good relationship with your wife. Just because you watch porn doesn't mean that it's going to ruin your relationship. Why look at that negativity of a person? Why focus on that negative aspect of the person? Focus on the goodness in your relationship with your wife. Focus on the goodness in the relationship with your fellow friends, with your
community members, acquaintances,
Exactly.
anybody you meet.
The first question that's coming up to mind is not the action of like what you're doing. It's why do you feel like you need to do that? Like in therapy, I guess, and it's a newer concept. Everybody's like, the drugs aren't the problem. It's the solution to the problem. So maybe find the root to the problem and then address it, by steps.
Exactly. Find the root of the problem. Find the root as to why you're falling down. A Yid falls down, but he gets back up. Sheva Yipol Tzaddik. There's 7 layers. Tzaddik falls down 7 times.
A righteous person.
A righteous person.
Right.
Yeah.
He can fall down 7 times, but he gets back up bigger and greater than ever.
And they bring down that not only, it's not in spite of the 7 times, what makes the person a righteous man is the fact that he fell 7 times and continued to persevere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People, it's like a weight when you're working out. You have weights. When you're picking up that weight, it hurts. You give a crack.
It sucks.
You cry out.
Yeah.
It's like, but look at the gains that you're gaining from that.
Yeah.
Look at what happens afterwards. It builds your muscle. It gets you stronger.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in life. You go through the hardest time in your life. You pick that up and you go from there and you bring yourself deeper and higher up in life.
Yeah.
You build
And it's
upon
gonna be
that.
delayed gratification. It's not gonna come right away.
Exactly. It takes work. It takes a lot of work to get to that level.
I think specifically in the challenge that you mentioned, the pornography, throw in drugs, abuse, even alcoholic behaviors, there's a lot of shame around those challenges. If somebody's struggle is, listen, I always am nice to my wife, but once every month I slip up, it's like, okay, you're chilling, But specifically around these challenges, which are extremely prevalent,
Yep.
especially nowadays, there's a lot of shame. And I feel that even by discussing it like we are now, it just opens up the space to be able to discuss it and be able to... It's reminding me of a story. I have a very close friend in Fishers. His name is Yehuda. And when he was trying out for the Waterbury Yeshiva, Rabbi Kalish, who runs it, asked him, why do you want to come to Waterbury? So Yehuda responded, Rabbi, I'll tell you honestly, I want to smoke weed here. I know that's legal. There's no rules. You can do whatever you want. I'm here to have a good time. I want to smoke weed. And he said, I want you in my yeshiva. I need you. He said, what do you mean? I smoke weed. You don't do that. You don't struggle with that. He said, I'm going to judge you because God gave you a different challenge than me.
Facts.
It's fire.
Facts. You can't
Right?
judge somebody because they're struggling through a challenge.
Right.
That's an amazing thought. Daniel Kalish, I know I was very close with his father, who was just nifter a few weeks ago.
Baruch Dynamics.
He was actually the rabbi that married me off.
Wow.
I was very, very close
Saw
with him.
pictures, yeah.
Yeah, very close with him. And the reason I connected with him in 11th grade is because I wasn't the guy in his class that was sitting there learning the most. I wasn't the guy that was
The most studious.
the most studious. Heck, ditch class most of the time, to be perfectly honest with you. I used to ditch class more than anything. You know what he used to do? He used to come over to me. He used to find me after class. And he used to tell me, Zach, Zacharia, let's go for a ride. And
Nice.
he actually taught me how to drive.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he was a big component in teaching me how to drive. He's like, let's just go for a drive. And he showed that love for me in 11th grade, even though, quite honestly, I don't know if I deserved it.
In a not so conventional form as well. Like your Rebbe doesn't just take you out. Like that's not a normal thing.
Yeah, it was
So he made it
an
relatable, I
abstract
guess.
way. He realized that I wasn't able to sit in class and learn like the rest of the guys. So he took me out in a different way. And I see it in Waterbury with Reb Daniel Kalish. I feel it's the same thing. He realizes that guys are going through a challenge, and in spite of that, he'll go out of his comfort zone,
Right.
out of his thing, in order to make that person feel comfortable and that person feel loved.
Wow. Wow.
It's an amazing thought to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's also understanding. I'm thinking about it now as we're speaking about it. I love this conversation. We're all so similar. You know, we make these external differences. We could talk about even Israel. I was going to point that out when you were talking about how everybody does and celebrates as one. I was going to say, but is that even true? Kind of push you a little bit. There's so many different sects in the Israel demographics.
Absolutely, but the main thing that everybody cares about, even though they celebrate it different ways, maybe the person doesn't light a Hanukkah. Maybe they don't connect to Hanukkah that way. But I can tell you one thing, they're still on the line by Rollin Bakery waiting for that
How you
Sufganiyot,
doing,
sir?
Nice.
waiting for that donut. They're still going to the toy store and buying a present for their kid because it's
The
Hanukkah.
spark is always there.
There's always something that they're relating to with the holiday. And it's the same thing. Every person needs to find that. Maybe they can't connect to the menorah. Maybe they can't connect to playing dreidel or learning about it or something like that. Every person could connect to giving a gift and getting a gift.
Correct.
I don't think there's anybody out there that can't connect to giving a gift and getting a
One of the
gift.
5 love languages.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the biggest goals for Relatable is just number one, having such a wide, diverse audience and guests that we have on, just to get the feeling that we're all in this together. We're all having the same struggles. It might be manifested differently, but at the same time, like you're not crazy. Like we're all doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Different paths, but all
Yeah.
the same goal. Very well said, yeah.
Absolutely. Very well said. I love that.
Thank you.
Very well said. It's Judaism has, to me, probably the most diverse crowd of people. You have those 2-dayers that go to synagogue for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You have the person that goes and davens 3 times a day.
Intensely with utter concentration.
Concentration and sits for hours after learning. But you know what? You put them in a room together, and you can really see that they connect together.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
yeah.
You know, there was an Arab actually that told me. I was speaking to an Arab, and he told me, he said there's a general thing amongst Arabs. There are many Arab countries out there. But he said if you take a Gazan or a Palestinian and you put them in a room with 10 other Arabs, they're going to bring a fight amongst each other.
Wow.
They're going to fight, constant fighting. If you take 10 different Jews and put them in a room, what are you going to end up with? They're all going to sit there praying to God.
Boys bringing together. You
They're
know?
all going to farbring. They're
Wow.
all going to drink. They're all going to eat. They're all going to party and just have a good time together. No fighting. Very rarely are you in a room with 10 Jews and you have fights.
Mm-hmm.
You may have disagreements. Everybody disagrees
It's
on
healthy to
points.
even,
It's
yeah.
healthy. Argue over different points.
Of course.
But you're never going to get up there and start throwing fists with another Jew. It's not,
100%.
it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's like Jews really show a love for everybody. One of the biggest things out there is, I'm going to say it in Hebrew and then I'll translate to English, but Yahavta l'recha kamocha. And what does that mean? To love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. It's one of the hardest things. And it was taught by Rebbe Akiva. who didn't learn, didn't do anything for the first 40 years of his life.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Such a
When you're
powerful
40
story.
years old, you don't generally change the way
No.
you live and the way you go about your business. It's just like
You are. You're
you
set
are,
in your
you are, and you're
trajectory.
set in your ways. Here's a guy that taught us one of the greatest lessons in the world, in my eyes at least, to love a Jew like you love yourself. It's like the craziest thing out there.
When you speak about that, is there anybody that comes to mind? Maybe a mentor, a figure, a leader that you tried to come up to that ideal?
So one of the biggest leaders that I follow and I listen to and I love to learn about and emulate my life around is Reb Shaya ben Ramesha. You learn from him.
Who is he? Give me a little background for somebody who's
He was
unaware.
a rabbi that lived in Kerestir. He didn't have the greatest wealth, didn't have the greatest house, I guess, or anything like that. But the one true thing that he lived by is that his house was open to anybody. Anybody wanted, they were welcome in his house. He was known as a chef. He would literally cook up meals for guests. He would have tons of guests in his house, always feeding them, always. Because you know what? What brings out the happiness of most people?
Food, baby.
Food.
Especially us Jews.
Yeah, I tell everybody that, like, especially in Fisher's, the topic of the love language is very, very, like, big. I'm like, dude, my first language is food.
Absolutely,
You know?
it's food. It's crazy. There's one story that I love from Reb Shaya. I don't know all the details of it necessarily, but from what I remember, there was a time where he had washed, and right before eating bread, you have to wash. And he washed his hands, and he made the bracha, the blessing on the bread, and he saw a Jew in the back, and the Jew, his teeth were cracked and never disheveled and everything else. So before he took out a bite, and one of the biggest things is when you make a bracha, a blessing, you got to first take a bite right away so that there's no separation between the blessing and eating. So what did he do? He stopped, he saw the Jew, he took out a piece of the middle of the bread, and he brought it over to the person before he took his bite.
Whoa.
And after he took his bite, everything, the Jews around him asked him, like, why'd you do that? So he said, I saw this Jew sitting in the back corner, and by the time the bread would have made it to him, it would have just been the ends and the crust of the bread. And with his teeth, it would have been very hard for him to bite the actual bread. It would have been very hard to chew the bread. So I stopped and I saw, and I brought him the middle of the bread in order that it was easy for him to chew and easy for him to enjoy it.
Whoa.
It's insane.
So I just try emulating everything after him. I try, before Shabbos comes up, I ask anybody any allergies. Is there any food that you guys specifically like to eat? Is there anything that I can make for you that you enjoy?
Even now, there's delicious meat in the fridge, and you're like, should I grill it up for you? Please, it's okay. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to make it that the person enjoys it. To
Yeah,
make
the sensitivity, I think people very, very much appreciate.
Yeah, and just like the overall, people need to feel comfortable again. Feeling comfortable in the house. If you go to a place and they don't have the food you like necessarily, it always brings down the level of comfortness.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I didn't eat anything all Shabbos. Like, I'm hungry. It wasn't like great food. It wasn't
Yeah.
this. It always brings it down. So I very much try emulating like him. I try making sure all Jews are comfortable. Everybody's comfortable in my house. Everybody has what they want, anything that they need, to making sure that they're comfortable, to making sure that they can appreciate the time here, to make it like it's their house, to bring out their comfortability. And
It's beautiful.
I try living everything by Reb Shaya to love
Nice.
every Jew.
It's so interesting because on a historical note, Rabbi Shiloh was known in the Rebbe circle as a leader as very subclass. He wasn't necessarily brilliant in his learning, in his esoteric concepts that he was aware of. Rather, he was a chef, like you said. And I think it took a while to be able for people to appreciate the greatness that he really had.
Absolutely. I'll tell you firsthand. I'm not the biggest learner out there.
Right.
I'm not deep in that. So leading back to when Rabbi Groner sat with me, I actually looked at it and I said, what am I good at? I'm good at cooking food.
Yeah.
I'm good at
Making people feel
making
comfortable.
people
Hosting.
feel comfortable. And he actually brought me for the first time. He brought me to Karastir to Reb Shaila.
Really?
Yeah, I went with him.
Was that when you first got inspired and connected to Rav Shiloh?
No. That was the first time I really got connected with him. It was actually on a trip we took. This was a couple years after I met him. We made a trip to go to Poland and to Hungary
Really?
and Israel. Yeah, it was amazing. We took 55 guys.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
We went to, we landed in Warsaw. We toured around Warsaw. We drove countless hours on a bus.
Oh my gosh.
Countless hours on a bus. And we went to all the concentration camps. We actually were in Auschwitz on the 75th anniversary of the liberation. It was
Prehistoric.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was the day after, and we didn't even realize this. We
Really?
had planned the whole trip.
Wow.
We knew it was right around there, and we planned the whole trip because we knew that they were going to have a ceremony the day before at Auschwitz, and we didn't want to be there for the ceremony.
Mhm.
So we planned to go there the following day. Now, what we had no idea about is that the following day was the day that all the survivors were touring the camps.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
It must have been
And
very intense.
It was beyond intense, and we walked around the camps with the survivors. We actually went in Auschwitz 1 to the gas chamber, and we went in there, and we came out after, and there was a survivor there. We all stood around. He was talking to us, and he literally started yelling at Hashem, yelling at him. He's like, you have a chutzpah for what happened here. It was a real chutzpah that you did this to
Blatant
Klal Yisrael.
disrespect.
Like a disrespect that you treated your people this way and you let them go through all this. And it was just like eye-opening, literally eye-opening to see this. And the students after Auschwitz, we went to a place that's not open anymore in Krakow called Zeligs. So at first they went to the Ramah, who's buried in Krakow, and there were a bunch of Kohanim that were on the trip. So they couldn't really go into the Ramah. So I walked with them ahead to the restaurant. And I got to the restaurant, I gave them my credit card, and I told them, I don't want you to stop bringing out beer.
No way.
I don't want you to stop bringing out beer. The guys just went through hell, walking through Auschwitz, seeing hell. They need to just open up and be
Chill.
happy
Yeah.
and get out of that mindset that everything is doom and gloom.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, it was probably one of my best nights ever.
Really?
Wow.
One of the most amazing nights ever.
Why is that?
All the guys came. They were drinking beer. They got really happy. The dancing that was going on there, so much so that we actually broke the floor in Zeligs.
No,
No.
way.
The floor actually collapsed.
That's a statement of happiness
That's
right there.
insane. Yeah.
We were dancing, everybody up on their feet,
It's so
jumping up
special.
and down, just dancing. We actually collapsed the floor in
I
Zeligs.
love that.
And it was one of my favorite nights just to see everybody being happy. Guys that even on that trip, they fell down.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. There were a couple of guys that actually went, unfortunately, and did some stuff that I'm not gonna share. And they were feeling really down that they did it. And I told them, stop worrying about what you did. Stop it. You could always do tshuva. You could always repent for it. Think about the goodness in your life. Think about
good
everything.
point,
The
yeah.
good point. Think about that you're on this trip, that you're seeing what the Jews went through during the Holocaust, and realize that, thank God, you're able to be free. You're able to learn the Torah. You're able to enjoy the Yom Tov and the holidays. You're able to expand upon that. Don't live in your past mistakes. It's not worth it. You'll bring yourself. You'll be depressed. You'll bring yourself to all kinds of troubles if you do that.
100%.
Think about the goodness.
100%.
And these guys, I still see today. One of them actually lives here in Israel, and he really has a true appreciation for Judaism now. I
Wow.
don't think he looks upon that act that he did in Poland. I think that he's moved past it, and he's realized he did wrong, and I think he's really expanded upon his goodness, and he's one of the best
Beauty.
Jews I know now.
That's gorgeous.
Unbelievable.
Literally one of the best Jews I know.
I think that's an unbelievable story to wrap up on and just sit on. But Zach, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing and getting so vulnerable. That was
Of
really, really
course,
awesome.
yeah.
I'm so happy the way it
Thank
turned
you
out.
for having me.